One question is addressed to you, Melina. Is fall armyworm a threat to our crops in northern New South Wales? Thank you.
Can you just repeat that? Is it what in our crops?
Is it threat to our crops? Is it potential pest to our crops in northern New South Wales?
Oh, a threat. Yes, I think that's one of the big questions at the moment is how far and how frequently will we see fall armyworm outside of the tropical and subtropical areas? And there's quite a bit of activity looking at, what the climatic drivers might be for movement south. If you think about what happens in North America and the movement in autumn from south to north, if we sort of turn that upside down and think, well, maybe we will see a similar sort of movement from north to south later in summer when the populations are built up in North Queensland, depending on the season there, of course, then it's a matter of thinking about which crops might be there, perhaps from December onwards or from February onwards. It just depends. And I guess there is a slight risk perhaps to early sown winter crops and also perhaps to later late summer crops or late irrigated summer crops. But the other thing to keep in mind is that at the moment this fall armyworm seems to be showing a very strong preference for maize, sweet corn and sorghum, and there are still lots of questions around what its preference might be for things like winter cereals, for some of the pulses in the Burdekin that have seen feeding on chickpeas and on soybeans, but fairly superficial leaf feeding at that. So I wouldn't rule it out, but it's probably not going to be something that you see every year and at sort of high pest pressure.
Thank you, Melina. Maybe we can find time just for one more question. So, Job, quick answer on how often virus incidents can be expected in pulse crops, especially in chickpea. Thank you.
Can you repeat that, Sarisa? How often?
How often virus incidents can be expected in pulse crops, especially in chickpea?
Especially chickpea. How often it can be expected? I wish we knew that. It's still very much a guess kind of thing. As I said before, this year, a year like this, seems to be particularly risky. But that's based on the limited understanding that we have at the moment on the aphid movement, and that's also why we are working at the moment on getting a better handle on what makes the aphids tick, what makes them move particularly. So I wish I could answer that. I would say that, but if I would answer that, I would be lying. The best thing is for the chickpea growers is to practice the optimal economic management. So be sure that you have a well-established crop, no empty patches, if possible, sow in stubble, all the kind of things that avoid aphid landing and also help in compensation by healthy plants of infected plants. In faba bean, particularly against the early infection with persistently transmitted viruses, we still have the option of seed treatment. Imidacloprid seed treatment in the past were not economical, they were very expensive. At the moment, that's a lot cheaper. I think it gets back down to around $5 per hectare, and that could be a good preventive measure if you have very early sowing after a summer with a lot of rainfall. In chickpeas, because in chickpea we're particularly concerned about spring infections, spring aphid flights. So after the winter, seed treatments are not effective. We tried that; it doesn't give any protection.